everybody, this is your Shruthi ma'am, and today we're going to study this chapter Heredity. Now this is a very important star chapter for your board exam, mainly because a lot of high weightage questions come from this particular chapter. Okay, now actually speaking, this chapter is super simple because it talks about our everyday features that we are carrying with us, right? Our nose, skin tone, hair, whatever you take is something that we have accumulated from our previous generations. So this heredity, this element of passing on characters, how it happens, what laws are behind it, this is all what we have to discuss in this chapter. Okay, so definitely take notes, and in the description box there is the link to today's test. So definitely make sure that you're going to attempt the test and you're going to watch out for the leaderboard. Okay, so the bonus session is coming in progress. Okay, it's going to be there really soon, so definitely do make sure that you will do the test. Okay, all right, so now coming to the notes. Okay, so once you come to the bonus session and you actually attempt the final test, that's when you'll get the full notes. And apart from that, all our notification, all our in detail schedules and everything will be shared in our WhatsApp group. So don't forget to check out our WhatsApp community for all the updates. Okay, so scan the QR code, join the group so that you'll be able to access all of these notifications. Okay, and definitely do subscribe the channel if you still have not subscribed, so that it will be easier for you to keep up with all the classes. Okay, and in our Xylem we have the fast track batch for the NEET, which is already started but running a 15% off right now. And for our Thalapathy as well as the repeaters batches, we have a mega 30% off that is going on right now. So definitely do avail these benefits if you are preparing for your NEET exam. Okay, fine. So coming to heredity. Now if you see, plants like sugarcane, okay, will reproduce asexually, and there is very little variation that is there in each of the individuals. Okay, now what do you mean by these variations? Some differences. So all sugarcanes look alike? No, according to you. And genetically also all of them are going to have the same genetic content. But if you look at sexually reproducing organisms, even if you might look like your mother and father, you're not exactly Xerox copies or duplicates of them, correct? So there is noticeable variations that you can see amongst each of the individuals. Okay, so in this chapter we're going to see all the concepts related to this heredity. So first concept you should know is accumulation of variation. So what do you mean by accumulation of variation? When you see there is one change that is happening in one generation, that change will be basically carried on to the next individual as well. Okay, so these changes will go from one generation to another generation. Okay, now for example, let's say your grandfather had a sharp nose, grandmother had a blunt nose, and as a result, if your father had a medium-sized nose, right? So even if your father had medium-sized nose, this medium-sized nose along with the different kinds of traits that your ancestors had will be carried down to your next generation, and from you, the generations to come, it will continue like that. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is these small changes that you're seeing, which we call as variations, is something that develops from the previous change. So there is one change, from there is another change. So like that it continues, it will inherit from the previous one and develop a newer variation. But if you see in asexual reproduction, we don't have these major differences. Only sexual reproduction is the one that will carry out these particular variations. Okay, now not all variations have equal chance of surviving. What does that mean? Now when there is a particular variation, it must be a beneficial variation. So if not, it is not going to survive for a long time, right? And also the same thing is that the environment is one, the nature is the one that will choose which of the variations is a good one and which of the variations will actually help the progeny to survive in the nature. So that's how each of these variants will be chosen. Okay, now coming to this diversity, this is how I told you. See, now there's one species, this species changed here, now this species changed something else, and like that, generation after generation, this variation keeps on accumulating. So heredity is nothing but the kind of characters, okay, that is passed on, what we inherit from our ancestors over generations through certain factors which we call as genes, is what we call as heredity. Okay, so you are similar to your parents because of this, and you are different from your parents also because of this. Okay, so even though you are a product, now okay, one simple example is, now if you are one child and you have a sibling, now both of you were born to the same couple, but nevertheless you are not ditto same copies, right? You still have variations, though you can be similar and they can say okay, he is your brother only for sure, but you're not the exact Xerox copy of your brother. Correct? So this is what we call as heredity. Now what are the different inherited traits that we have? So like I said, both similarities and differences. So that can be your ear shape. Now the ear shape is given here. This is an example from your textbook. But otherwise, if you see also, starting from your shape of the ear, shape of your nose, the texture of your hair, your skin tone, everything is something that is inherited from your parents. Okay. So now if your parents are in a certain tone of color, suddenly you will not be formed in an extremely different color or something totally different. Now let's say they have a certain kind of eyes in your family, suddenly you will not look like somebody else, you will also look similar to your family only. Okay, understood? Now for this type of inheritance we have certain rules, which is what a certain scientist called as Mendel gave us. Okay, so Mendel said that first thing is that the amount of genetic material, now usually they say that the legacy is carried by the father, correct? But actually that's not true, because scientifically we know that there is equal inheritance. The mother gives 23 chromosomes and the father also contributes the same 23 chromosomes to the child, making a complete diploid number, or what we call 46 chromosomes in the case of human beings. Okay, so every child's trait is decided by both the parental and the both paternal as well as the maternal DNA. So as a fusion of both, there will be new variations that are produced in this particular child. Okay, now different traits are there that we can consider. So this Mendel was studying different characters like the stem height, the seeds, the flowers, the shape, everything he was monitoring, and from those experiments he did some crosses. Okay, some trial and error experiments he was doing. So if you consider just one trait, okay, if you just consider one particular cross, considering a one particular feature in a plant, I don't care about the flowers, I don't care about the texture, I only care about the height, that becomes a monohybrid cross. So what he did, he took two tall plants and he crossed. To see the first generation, everybody were tall. Okay, now when he self-crossed the same tall plant, he saw that there were there were a 3:1 ratio of tall to short plants. Clear, everyone? So those flowers been self-pollinated. Now see, first generation there was a tall, there was a dwarf plant. From there in the next generation everybody were tall. But from there, when it came to the next generation, in the 3:1 ratio, the same shot or the dwarf feature returned black without any kind of blending. Okay. Moreover, when in the first generation, he saw that everybody had tall plants, right? When everybody had tall plants, he said that, okay, when two features are coming together, then only one trait will express itself, whereas the other one is not going to open his mouth at all. So if tall is the dominant one, all my plants are going to be tall, and there is not going to be any option for the short allele to express itself. Okay, is what he said. So that's where he said that all our traits are being controlled by a pair of factors, which we now call genes. But these pair of factors is what? One we get from the mother, one we get from the father. So out of both of these factors, if let's say there is one factor, okay, which is dominant, okay, then only that factor will express. So simply what he said, that if they are the same, there is no problem. Okay, if they are the same, they will carry the same message. But if they are different, then only one will express itself, whereas the other will keep quiet. Okay, so this is what he said. Now from there, when he did a 2-character cross, okay, so when he did a 2-character cross means what? Dihybrid cross, considering 2 features. What did he take? He took round seeds and a short plant, and then he took he took a tall plant with round seeds. So he took a tall plant, round seeds, a short plant, and wrinkled seeds. So he took both. He took all of these things, and then what he did a cross. So in that, what he found, when he took a tall and round and crossed it with a short and wrinkled, all the first generation had tall and round. Now when he self-crossed this plant, he got a fully surprised combination. So when you have this kind of a plant, how many gametes can you make out of it? So if you see, there will be 50% chance of getting a tall, there will be 50% chance of having a short. Same way, there is a 50% chance of having a round, 50% a chance of having a wrinkled. So with these 4 alleles, when you do a cross in the Punnett square, right? So how do you do the cross? Right? So when we have the features here, round, then small r, then everything small. Okay? Similarly, this side, when I make the cross, I can see that there are 16 combinations that I can make, of which I'll get a 9:3:3:1 ratio. Now he was confused. He was like, how is it possible that I got something like this? But then when he looked deeper, if you look at just the round plants, it was 9 plus 3, so 12. Just the wrinkled plants, 3 plus 1, which is 4, which is equal to 3:1. Okay. Now if you look at the tall plants, it was 9 plus 3, 12, and short plants were 3 and 1, so 4, 3 plus 1. That is also 3:1. So that means even if there are 2 pair of factors present together, one segregation will not affect the other. Okay, so this is what he said. Independent traits will separate independently. One person does not depend on the other. They are independently having a 3:1 ratio. That's how he said. Okay, now apart from these rules, now you must be wondering, okay ma'am, I understand these rules are there, but how exactly they're getting expressed? That is because of your DNA. Now, inside our cell, we have a nucleus, and inside the nucleus, we have a DNA. So in this DNA, if you see, there are segments of DNA. So let's say this segment is going to give me eye color. Okay, same way, then there is another segment which is going to give me my height, and so on. So like this, on the DNA, there will be so many segments. On all these segments, we call as a gene. Okay, now this segment will undergo certain processes and produce a protein. Okay, what this protein should be, that this segment only will tell. Okay, now based on this protein, you must have heard, no, 3rd standard science, all building blocks of the body is protein. So from that we know that this protein is the one that is going to express itself. It can be an enzyme, it can be a structural molecule, it can be a hormone, it can be anything that you say in your body, it is all a kind of a protein. Now who is telling what protein it should be? That is coming from the DNA. Okay, so that is why we say what color we are going to be, what height we are going to be, how smart we are, what is our eye color, nose shape, what is our body type, everything, how our enzymes work, what foods we are allergic to, how we metabolize the food in our body. Every single thing is determined by this particular DNA, because from the DNA is where we're going to have the proteins expressed, and these proteins in turn will actually give rise to the actual features in our body. Clear, everybody? So for example, if you take tallness, right? If you take tallness, it is coming from a hormone called the growth hormone. Now this hormone will decide how tall you are. But how much of this hormone should come? Who will decide? The segment of DNA. So let's say the segment of DNA is functioning very well. Okay, then it will give a lot of growth hormone, right? It will produce the protein. Who is the protein here? It is the growth hormone. Now this growth hormone will help in the stems to elongate, the plant to grow, and as a result my entire plant will be tall. Okay, so it is because of a functional gene. Everything is pakka, more hormones are produced, it will be happening. Now let's say there is some change in the enzyme. Okay, as a result this segment is now telling, no, you cannot give 10 molecules, you only should give 2 molecules instead of 10. So what happens? That means now lesser hormone is produced. So if lesser growth hormone is being produced, what will happen? The plant cannot grow more than a certain height, so it becomes a short plant. Okay, so the genes is what will influence the trait, okay, through how well it is able to express itself. Understood? So now when you look at the height of a plant, we have 2 different kinds of alleles. Now what are these alleles? There are 2 different types of this segment of DNA. So one is a tall type which is giving full hormone instruction. The other one is a short type. Okay, so now in this pair of allele, if they are same, then there is no confusion. But if they are different, then only one will express itself while the other will not. Understood, everybody? So this particular law is what we call the law of dominance. The fact that only one, when there are 2 different kinds of factors present together, only one will express itself while the other will not express itself. That is the law of dominance. Second thing is what? Even if they are going to separate, okay, now from the parents' generation itself they separated and they came here, but after this, without any mixing in the next generation, 3:1 may, that one was a recessive trait, no. So that means without any blending they will segregate and they will join as it is. So that is the second rule or second law that Mendel gave, which is the law of segregation. That is, during the process of gamete formation, they will segregate one factor into each of the gametes. Okay. Then from there, the last rule that he gave us is the law of independent assortment. What is independent assortment? In the dihybrid cross, we saw that the in the dihybrid cross, we saw that the factors, when even if they gave a 9:3:3:1 ratio, each of those traits were still carrying a 3:1. So this is called as the law of independent assortment. One pair of factor will segregate independent of another pair of factors. Clear, everybody? So this is the rules that he discussed. Okay, now moving on to how it is being expressed, the contribution of both parents. So like I said, we have a lot of myths associated to this, that father's legacy is there, father's family is important, blah, 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 whatever. So please be aware as the next generation students that both parents will contribute equally to the DNA of the offspring. Okay, so each parent will give one copy. Okay, which means what? We have 23 chromosomes. In this 23 chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosome. 123 is given by the mother, 123 is given by the father. Okay, so it is always equal in that sense. Now what happens is, this particular genes, okay, they will be there on the DNA. Okay, and this DNA is super long. So we can't accommodate this DNA like one noodle soup in our nucleus. So what we do is, in order to make it easier while cell division, we will coil them nicely and make something called as the chromosome. Okay, so we make something called as the chromosome. So this particular chromosome is what we call 23 pairs of chromosomes, is nothing but the supercoiling of the entire DNA strand. So where the genes are nothing but segments of DNA. So here we will have one gene here, one gene here, one gene here, one gene here, like that. On the chromosome we will have the genes that are placed. Okay, now normally we have 46 chromosomes. We took one from mother, one from father. Now next generation, if I have to produce a gamete, which is the germ cells, sperm and the egg, that time I cannot just divide this cell normally, no, because next when it forms the zygote, it will unite with another cell and then only form the full zygote. So for that I will reduce the chromosome number by half, creating 23 chromosomes. So during the process of gamete formation, only one set of chromosome is passed on to the gamete. So that during fertilization, there will be 123 coming from one gamete, another 23 coming from another gamete, and as a result, the zygote will have the proper same number of chromosome that the normal human parent had. Clear, everyone? And then coming to independent inheritance, this is again another law I said. Okay, so please remember this, frequently asked topic. So every gene is carried on a separate chromosome. So that means irrespective of how one chromosome is dividing, another chromosome will mind his own business and he will divide. Okay, so just because one fellow is dividing a certain way, it does not influence how this fellow will divide or segregate. So both of them are running their own show. Clear? Now if you look at asexual reproduction, right, now there is no fusion of gametes, okay, there is no sexual reproduction kind of anything that happens. But here also it will follow the basic rules of heredity. Okay, because they will inherit the same genes from the parent, the basic rules of heredity will apply here also. Either way, if you see, our chromosomes are going to pass on to the next generation, and it is not going to have any kind of blending. It is just going to divide and form the next generation. Clear to all of you? Now the last topic of this chapter that you have to remember very, very closely is the sex determination. Okay, now if you look at sex determination, if you see here, different organisms use different strategies, right? So when you look at sex determination, the temperature of the environment can sometimes influence how they are going to reproduce, right? Sometimes turtles, right, based on whether they lay the eggs near the water or away from the water, the sex will change. Okay, so some of these animals like snails, turtles and all, their sex will change according to the environment. It's not fixed genetically, but for human beings it is fixed genetically. How? We have 46 chromosome, which is nothing but 23 plus 23. Now in this 23 pairs, 22 is autosomes. Okay, 22 pairs are autosomes, which is into 2 means 44 is autosomes. Means what? All our bodily feature it will decide. But when you look at the sex chromosome, the last chromosome, that is the sex chromosome. Now there, if it's a girl, it will be XX. If it's a male, it will be XY. A boy child will have an XY. Now, because a woman has XX, when it is undergoing cell division, what will happen? Gamete formation, it will form eggs that have 22 plus X only. Because there are 2 X, it will divide and all the eggs will have only 22 plus X. But sperms, that's not the case. 2 kinds of sperms can be produced, 22 plus X or 22 plus Y. So now, if this particular sperm will fertilize the egg, it will cause a 44 plus XX and there will be a girl child. Okay, and if this sperm will fertilize the egg, then it will be 44 plus XY and it will be a boy child. Okay, so this based on which sperm will fertilize the egg, the sex of the child is determined. So females will have XX, males will have XY. Understood? So because females have XX, the mother will only contribute the X, but the father will decide whether the child will be a female or a male child. Understood, everybody? So this is a very, very important concept. Okay, now definitely in this chapter I've just brushed through the top most important topics. Okay, so mainly you have to understand how variations are produced, how what is heredity. Okay, that is a very, very important something that is asked in repeated questions. Then talking about Mendel's rules, I quickly taught you the dominance, the segregation, the independent assortment, monohybrid cross, dihybrid cross, super important. Then we come to how exactly these genes are expressed, okay, which will be basically your genes forming the chromosomes and chromosomes segregating and then later expressing into proteins, which will result in the actual expression. So I gave you an example with growth hormone, that is super important. Okay, and then lastly sex determination. If you see questions from this chapter, we have seen almost, I think, 90% of questions come from sex determination. Okay, so very, very important. And based on today's topic, there is the link for the exam in the description box, guys. Don't forget to scan it. Okay, and also do subscribe our channel if you still have not subscribed, because every day we're going to come and help you prepare for your boards. And also our Xylem has the fast track batch, the Thalapathy batch and the VETRI batch in place for the NEET exam. And without any delay, if you're preparing for NEET, definitely do come purchase the course. Okay, and for all notifications for the schedule of our classes and how exactly we're going to go forward, all the details will be there in our WhatsApp group. So definitely do scan the QR code and join us. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. I hope this was useful to you. Definitely check out the description box and do the test for today, because I'll be seeing who all are attempting the test for today. Okay, and also as a note, sorry for my voice today. Okay, I'm just down with a sore throat, so I hope my video was clear to you. So if you have any doubts, definitely do comment. Okay, all the very best.